Mickey's Runaway Railway opens up this Friday, January 27th at Disneyland. And did you know that one of the only ways to experience this ride is by joining a virtual queue? Do you not know what the virtual queue is? You got questions? Do you have fear and anxiety over joining the virtual queue? Fear not, my friends, because I am here to let you know everything you need to know about the virtual queuing system here at Disneyland. Welcome everyone to The Treasured Guest, a show about all things Disney, including those disrespectful guests that cast members sometimes ironically call treasured guests. In the terms of treasured guest on this show, it means a derogatory term, so please do not confuse the meaning. Each show I will bring you a treasured guest to show you, and trust me, you do not want to miss this show's treasured guest because they're going to show you how they bear to cope with the Disney Skyliner, so don't miss it. Treasured guests come up later in the show. All right, everybody. So as mentioned, one of the only ways to ride Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in Disneyland when it comes out this weekend is by joining a virtual queue. So what is a virtual queue? So basically, a virtual queue is a policy that Disney initiated back when they opened up Disney's Galaxy's Edge in both Disney World and Disneyland. And basically, what the intent is that the intent is to try to lessen the impact of not only the queuing space that's in that area, but also lessen the impact to us customers that are in the queue. Disney normally does this with newer rides as they're not really quite sure like how the impact of queue management and queue movement is going to react on newer rides. So what they do is they instill this virtual queue system where basically you go into the Disneyland app, you sign up for the virtual queue. If you're lucky enough, because these things do fill up quick, but if you're lucky enough to be in a virtual queue, Disney will give you what's called a boarding group number. Now what's going to happen is that instead of going to the queue like you normally would whenever you wanted to, you would come back during these boarding groups that Disney gives you. So like I said, it lessens the impact on the actual queue. It frees up the ability of park guests to do other things, ride at other rides, maybe go get something to eat, do a little shopping, and then come back when it is convenient for Disney to do so. So as mentioned, this is normally implemented on newer rides. And then normally after a few months, once Disney gets the hang of how the ride works and how the queuing works for that ride, then what they'll do is they'll remove the virtual queue system. So this happened more notably recently with Web Slingers over there at Avengers Campus in Disney California Adventure. When it first opened, it had a virtual queue for a few months, then it went away, and now they've done a pretty good job of managing that queue. All right, everybody, so let's get into it. So for those of you guys who don't know how to sign up for a virtual queuing space, in this case for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway that comes up, first thing you need to do, and I'm going to show you everything step by step on the app right here. So the first thing you want to do is you want to download the Disneyland app. Obviously, you can find it on your app store, whether it's Apple or Google Play, etc. So once you have the Disneyland app open, then what you want to do is you want to create your profile on there. Now, Disney is unique in that they own a lot of different entities and that all those entities all have the same login information. So if you have, like, for example, an ESPN account, Hulu account, Disney Cruise Line account, etc., then all your accounts are going to be under the same login info. So if you already have one of those accounts, then it's also going to work on your Disneyland app. Okay. Then the next thing you want to do is once you have the Disneyland app is and do all this before Park Day, by the way. So get familiar with the Disneyland app. There's a lot of cool things you can do on there, like order food, order merchandise, obviously do Genie Plus, stuff like that. Now, a lot of those things, obviously, you won't be able to do until you get to the parks, but getting familiar with where those things are in the app beforehand is only going to set you up for success when you're actually in the park, okay? Other things you want to do. So you want to link your reservations. So you have hotel reservations, theme park tickets. You want to link all those in the app, make sure they're there. Because it's not always going to import over. You can buy something on the Disneyland website and then it won't necessarily forward over to the app. So you may have to go in there, enter your confirmation number. So make sure into the app. So make sure that all that stuff is in the app ready to go before your visit. Okay. Also, the other things, if you're traveling with a party, you want to make sure that all your party members are on your app, okay, or whoever's going to be managing the app during the trip. Because when you're booking things like reservations, dining, things of that nature, it does save time if all your party members are already in the app. Now, the app normally does a pretty good job at this. So if you booked a reservation online or through a travel agent, then when you put that confirmation number in the app, it normally does a pretty good job of forwarding everybody to the app. But you just want to make sure that all that stuff is in there, ready to go. So now that all that is said, the first thing you want to do is obviously open up the Disneyland app. So as you can see on my screen here, it's going to look a little different. It has my name there. It will have your name. I'm a Magic Key member, so my screen may look a little different than, members who don't. And then that obviously has my upcoming plans, things like that. So what you want to do to get into the virtual queue is down here on the bottom right, where you see these 3 lines, or some people call it like shelves or stacks. You want to hit those 3 buttons, okay? And then this is going to bring up a whole other menu of stuff. But down here towards like the center bottom on the left, you're going to see this thing that says virtual queues. Pretty convenient, right? So click on virtual queues. All right, and then it's going to have a thing that says, look like you haven't joined an available virtual queue yet. And then obviously click on join virtual queue. And then from there, what it's going to do is it's going to give you the options that they have going on for today, because it refreshes every day. And obviously between Disneyland Park and Disney California Adventure Park. So for today at Disneyland Park, they have, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. At the time of this recording, they were only doing cast member previews, so obviously it's not open to the public. And then if you were to click on California Adventure over there, then they have also another virtual queue for World of Color. Okay, in this case for this video, obviously you would go back to Disneyland Park, and then in this case you would click on, Disney Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. It's not going to let me go forward at this point because the times for the reservations are already done for the day. However, what you would do is you would click on, join the virtual queue. The next page that would come up after that would be confirming your party, and then you would hit submit after that. Your family members are in there, your party members are good. Then at, I would say like 6:59 and like 57 seconds, go ahead and refresh on that virtual queue screen, because you can already have it preloaded. It's just at like those couple seconds before 7 a.m. You want to refresh. And then, because once that 7 a.m. hits, then it's like the wild, wild west. Like everybody is going to be trying to get a virtual queue space on there, and you want to be as quick as you can with those fingers, right? Like boom, 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 to get it in there. So 7 a.m. is your first attempt. Hopefully you are able to get it. Okay. If you're going normally like during slower times, hopefully you have a better shot than, on busier days like the weekends and stuff like that. And then it's going to let you know straight up if you got one or not. Okay. Now, if you did not get a reservation, do not fret. Okay. Do not fret, because there is a secondary, and that second time is at 1 p.m. And what that second opportunity does is it opens up the opportunity for people who say we're park hopping at Disney California Adventure. And then obviously at 1 p.m. when you're park hopping, that's obviously going to be subject to change soon. But for now, park hopping at 1 p.m. people can go to Disneyland from California Adventure and vice versa, right? So they wanted to give an opportunity for those guests to also sign up for a virtual queue. And that's why the afternoon virtual queuing time is at 1 p.m. So same rules, same best practices apply here. If you're trying to go for an afternoon one, a couple seconds before 1 p.m., hit refresh, and then try to go and get through that as quickly as possible to get you a virtual queuing space. So there are 2 opportunities throughout the day to get a virtual queue for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway every day that they have the virtual queue space open. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to pull some things from actually the Disneyland website, so you're hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, on what their guidelines are on the virtual queue, and kind of go over some best practices and things of that nature. So for guests who are just real quick, World of Color. So World of Color in Disney California Adventure, the only time that you can join the virtual queue for World of Color is at noon. Okay, so there's no 7 a.m. and a 1 p.m. for World of Color. You can join the virtual queue for that at 12 p.m. And then obviously you would come back later in the night during those show times, and they'll direct you on the app where you need to go. So just kind of, it's a little bit different than Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So just kind of be aware of that. Okay, so multiple virtual queues. If more than one attraction is using a virtual queue, guests will need to enter those virtual queues one at a time. So in this case, they kind of put that on there because there have been times in the past where they've had multiple virtual queues for multiple attractions. In this case, obviously, it's Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So you're only going to have to worry about one queue at a time, obviously not counting World of Color. But it does say here that guests may enter a virtual queue for an attraction and one for entertainment at the same time. So that would be a little bit hard to do in this case with Mickey and Minnie's, obviously being in Disneyland and World of Color being in California Adventure. But theoretically, you can enter both of those queues at the same time because Mickey and Minnie's is an attraction and World of Color is considered entertainment. Obviously, check for updates. Don't obviously just apply to the app, but it obviously applies to the policy too. So I would just say a couple days, and every day that you're in the park, see if they've still got the virtual queue going on. Check the app, check your email. Obviously, you can also check things like Twitter in the parks as well. Disney makes changes on the fly a lot of times, and they may not necessarily tell you what's going on. So you may have the expectation of, oh, hey, I have a virtual queue. And then you get there and then they're not doing it anymore. And then that kind of changes your game plan too, right? As if, okay, when I'm touring the park, when am I actually going to get in the queue, right? But for now, as of the time of this recording, it looks like virtual queue is going to be, in place for at least a while. All right, so other things to keep in mind is that guests with a Magic Key Pass or Park Hopper ticket who will start their day at either park may begin crossing over the parks at 1 p.m. I already mentioned that. To redeem their boarding group. The ability to visit a park is subject to the park's capacity limitations, and a boarding group does not guarantee park admission. So keep that in mind as well if you're going to be park hopping for that day. Now, there's only very few times that they actually close the parks for capacity, let's be honest, and normally that's like around Christmas, New Year's. I have another video that talked about that, so check out that video if you want to see some survival tips if you're touring the parks during that time. But for the most part, if it's not a crazy, holiday like that, or maybe even something like 4th of July, you shouldn't really have to worry about capacity limitations. But just know that they have the disclaimer in there that having a boarding group does not guarantee theme park admission if you're park hopping. Why do I have such a hard time saying park hopping? I have no idea. Okay, next thing. Joining the virtual queue does not guarantee the ability to participate in the experience. So that's very important, and that sucks if you have to wake up at, 6:30, 7 a.m. in the morning, try to get a spot, you get one, and then you still can't experience the ride, right? Like that sucks. However, they normally do a pretty good job pending, ride breakdowns and things like that. And Mickey and Minnie's has been a fairly reliable ride at Disney World. So hopefully it will still stay the same over here in Disneyland. So I don't see the ride breaking down too often. Obviously, it's technology, new ride, things can happen. But there are things like capacity too, right? Like they're going to get through those boarding group numbers as quickly as they can. But depending on how many people have those virtual queue boarding groups, they may just simply not get to your group number. This happened a lot during Galaxy's Edge, during the opening Galaxy's Edge, when people were trying to get in there and ride rides, and they had boarding group numbers, but unfortunately there were just so many people that were trying to ride those attractions that their number just simply did not get called. And that can happen here. So just kind of be aware of that. In order to give as many guests as possible the opportunity to join the queue, each guest can enter the virtual queue for a given experience no more than once per day, subject to availability. If you got that, in this case, you awesome, you got the virtual queue spot, you're going to ride the ride, then you can only do it that once. So the rest of the day, you cannot get in another virtual queue to ride it again, right? So for example, you got your spot, a spot at 7 a.m. Your boarding group gets called at 10 a.m., right? You go and ride it. It's done after that. You cannot go back and try to get another virtual queue at the 1 p.m. opening, in this case for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway. So once you've done it once, that is it. Boarding groups for virtual queue are limited, subject to availability, and they're not guaranteed. Not all boarding groups may be called to return based on availability of the experience. I just covered that. More than one attraction is using a virtual queue. Guests will need to enter those virtual queues one at a time, but guests may enter a virtual queue for an attraction and one for entertainment at the same time. So I already talked about that, but just be mindful of that if they do open up more attractions, that have virtual queue space, then, and say both your boarding groups. So like say in this case, theoretically, there's a virtual queue, say for Indiana Jones, and then you have another one for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and both your boarding groups get called at the same time. Well, you can only enter one of those queues one at a time, okay? And you have an hour after your boarding group number is called to partake in that queue experience. So just be mindful of that. So if you got dining reservations or things like that, once that boarding group is called, you got 60 minutes, and then that's that. So just be mindful of that. Another thing too is that if you purchased an individual Lightning Lane reservation for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which we don't know the prices yet. Prices normally range from anything about, I've seen, $8 to $25. We have no idea. And that's per person, by the way. And we have no idea what the prices are. We'll know more this weekend when the ride comes out, obviously. However, if you do purchase an individual Lightning Lane, and the rules for purchasing an individual Lightning Lane, by the way, are very similar to that of the virtual queue. You go into the app, you go to the ride, the experience, purchase individual Lightning Lane, and then you may have to refresh multiple times until you can actually get one. So be mindful of that. If you want me to do a video on that, on how to book an individual Lightning Lane experience, let me know, and I can do a video on that in the future. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you're able to get one, then that does not impact your ability on the virtual queue. So though the policy says you can only do one virtual queue at a time, So you can still do the virtual queue and then the individual lightning lane. So in this case, if you were able to have both of those, then as long as your boarding group number is called and you're able to get on the ride, then you can ride the ride twice that day. Once for your purchased individual lightning lane, and then obviously the other one for your virtual queue. So the individual lightning lane has no impact on your virtual queue experience. All right, well, there you have it. So there is the overview of the virtual queue policies and also how to sign up for a virtual queue in the Disneyland app. So do you have any thoughts? Do you have any best practices or experiences? Please comment below, share the video, like it. I really want to hear your thoughts on virtual queue. And if you're going to be in the parks for the opening or even this weekend or anytime at all, and you have booked a virtual queue space to ride Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway or any other experience that uses virtual queue, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear that. All right, everybody. So now it's time to get into the treasured guest portion of this show. So as I said in the beginning of the show, when I use the term treasured guest here, it's in a derogatory term and is not in a good term. So this week's treasured guest actually comes to us from WF Dave Ensign on Twitter, who he reposted somebody else's TikTok who has since been removed on TikTok. However, I will play this video and I will just let it continue to go, and I will talk about it while it's continuously on loop for a couple minutes. So obviously, in the post, you can clearly see a female riding the Disney Skyliner, flashing her breast as a other Disney Skyliner is about to pass them. So for those of you who don't know what the Disney Skyliner system is, so the Disney Skyliner system is a gondola system, and it basically connects some of multiple resort hotels to the parks of Epcot and Disney Hollywood Studios in Florida, in Walt Disney World. It's actually a pretty cool system. It's pretty fast. I thought it was going to be pretty slow, but that gondola system could definitely move, and it's a nice, easygoing ride. So I like the Disney Skyliner. Now, I've never been on the Disney Skyliner when somebody was trying to flash me going the opposite way, but that's what we have here. So this isn't the first time that, I don't know what it is about, people in public or especially at Disney, but this hasn't been the first time that people have flashed themselves in Disney parks. So for example, Splash Mountain, which is gone now. I miss you, Splash Mountain, but I am looking forward to Tiana's Bayou Adventure when that opens. However, going back to Splash Mountain, there were times where there were so many women flashing their breast on that ride that the ride was nicknamed Flash Mountain as opposed to Splash Mountain. So and I think there's even a website out there. Obviously, I don't condone that. I'm not telling you to visit that, but I think there was a website at one time called Flash Mountain where people were putting up their ride videos or ride photos of them flashing. Now, I will say, obviously, Disney has caught on to that. So please don't go in the parks and try to flash yourself. It's a family theme park, right? And that's not obviously appropriate behavior. And I will say that if you try to do those things on rides, that Disney has, pretty good technology that will obviously admit those ride photos from even showing up. So a lot of people, they'll ride a ride and then, oh yeah, I got my photo on a ride, and just quickly get off it and see what the photo looks like, right? Well, if somebody in your photo is flashing themselves, you're not going to see your photo. It's not going to pop up on the screen at all. They've come a long way. Technology's come a long way, and you're not going to see that photo. It's not going to pop up in your Disneyland app or your Disney World app or anything like that. So just don't do it. All right. And then plus, obviously, you can get in trouble for that, right? Exposing yourself in public is a crime, right? And you can possibly have to deal with law enforcement, and Disney can even also trespass you from the parks, right? So in this case, I don't know. It's just a posting. I don't know what happened to this lady and her event. Obviously, somebody posted on TikTok and then deleted it. But another lesson too, kids, is that once it's on the internet, it's always on the internet. Nothing's ever deleted from the internet. So just remember that and think twice before you even think about doing something like this in the park. All right, well, there you have it. So what are your thoughts on this treasured guest? Do you think, was it just an innocent thing? Was it just, hey, just a girl having fun? Or do you think this is the worst thing ever and, she should be sent to hell for her actions, right? Or anything in between. So what do you think on the treasured guest? So leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, if you guys have a treasured guest that you have seen in the parks, then, please send them my way. share. I'll put all of our emails down below here and then also on our social media. So please share your treasured guest stories in the parks, because you never know that your treasured guest may end up as content beyond the show one day. All right, everybody. Well, there you have it. So thank you for tuning into this episode. I hope it helped you out for learning how to do the virtual queue space. I am excited for this ride. I'm very looking forward to it. It's awesome in Disney World. I am definitely looking forward to see if there's any like little changes or anything that's going to pop up that's going to be different in Disneyland. So excited for the ride. If you are going to be in the park, this weekend, then share your thoughts. I would love to hear your feedback. I'll be obviously following you all on social media to see, how the ride went. And then I will be there the week after. So if you guys are in the parks while I'm in the parks and you see me, say hello. I'd love to talk to you guys, hear your thoughts on, anything Disney, hear your thoughts on Treasured Guest, and, what are, anything that you have. I'd love to talk to you guys in the parks and love to say, hello to y'all. So, please do not be shy. Now, this is me obviously saying that please stay respectful and courteous to all others and anybody that you encounter in the parks, and do not become a treasured guest in the parks. Just don't do it. However, if you do decide to become a treasured park and a guest, then I say to you sarcastically, have a magical day.